Okay, I think we're ready to begin. It's a little bit after 3, and we're happy to be offering our second webinar, our second Mobiles for Reading Google Hangout. I'm Philip Denny. I'm the manager of the Big Ideas at Berkeley contest. And I just want to start with an agenda, a little bit of an agenda overview of what we're going to be presenting today. We're going to focus on 2 important areas that fall within the scope of Mobiles for Reading today, gaming and assistive technologies. In addition, we're going to give you a brief overview of the Big Ideas contest and talk briefly about the Mobiles for Reading category, which is a challenge that's part of the Big Ideas competition this year. We're going to talk about some of the opportunities to get involved in the competition this year and some of the projects that came before last year and entered the competition and did really great things and are off to great starts. But we want to just give you an overview of those 2 areas I mentioned, gaming and assistive technologies. We'll explore some of the current research and cutting-edge technologies that are being developed to improve literacy outcomes in those areas. And then lastly, we hope that people will ask questions and submit questions either via the chat window if you're looking at Google Hangout, or if you're on YouTube, you can submit questions via the chat window, or you can email bigideas@berkeley.edu during this broadcast, and we will try and answer questions directly from that as well. Right now, what I want to do is introduce some of our participants. We have Rebecca Leahy, who's the project director for All Children Reading Grand Challenge in World Vision. So Rebecca, maybe you can wave to the audience because they can see you down there in the window.
Hello.
We have Emma Oyanen, who is a researcher at the University of Jyväskylä in Norway. And we have Corinne Venepol, who's the president for the Institute for Disabilities Research and Training. And we're happy to have you all with us today as well. So with that, I'm going to launch you quickly into a presentation. I'm going to do a screen share here and open up a PowerPoint so you can see and watch along with us. Okay, hopefully everybody's looking now at my presentation, at our presentation today. I first want to just give a little bit of background on Big Ideas and what the Big Ideas competition is all about. Big Ideas has been around on the Berkeley campus since 2005, and it provides funding, support, and encouragement to interdisciplinary teams of graduate and undergraduate students who have creative solutions to important social challenges. Now this year, we have 10 Big Ideas categories that students are eligible to apply to. And I want to go over those briefly. We have a category on art and social change. We have a category on energy and resource alternatives. A new category this year on financial inclusion. We have a category on food systems innovation, another one on global health, improving student life, IT for society. We have a category for past winners of Big Ideas called scaling up. Those are students who have won Big Ideas and are looking to take their projects to the next level. And then we have what we're going to be talking about today, which is a category we added to the Big Ideas competition last year called Mobiles for Reading. And it is exactly what it sounds like, but Rebecca will probably talk about that in a minute. But Big Ideas, really what we're hoping to do is take students who have an important idea to solve an important social challenge and harness those ideas by providing a lot of resources over the course of an academic year. We offer judge and mentor feedback. We offer information sessions and writing workshops through the contest. We offer an 8-week mentorship period, as I previously mentioned. But all of these resources that we have are designed to help students get the ideas out of their head and onto paper for the very first time. And then at the end of the competition, students can win anywhere from $1,000 to $10,000 to begin to implement those projects. The pre-proposal deadline for Big Ideas is this year is November 12th of this year, and that's 12 noon Pacific time. That's an important date to remember if you're thinking about applying to the Mobiles for Reading Challenge or for any one of those other categories. November 12th is the deadline, and final proposal round runs from roughly January 24th through the March 9th deadline. So the Mobiles for Reading category was made possible through our sponsorship and through our collaboration with the All Children Reading Grand Challenge, in their partnership with USAID, World Vision, and the Australian government. And I'd like to open the floor up to Rebecca to talk a little bit about that.
Thank you very much, Philip. I hope there's not an echo on this line. Really excited to be partnering with the Big Ideas Challenge. This is a unique opportunity for us to be engaging students and those that are about to embark on new professions and careers to begin to think about reading in a new sense, and hopefully to generate some really groundbreaking opportunities to improve reading for children. All Children Reading is actually an initiative, as Philip said, of two bilateral agencies, the United States Agency for International Development, USAID, and the Australian government, and a non-traditional partner such as where I work as World Vision. And our goal is really to improve reading for children in grades 1 to 3, and we recognize that kind of blends on both ends a little bit in preschool and a little bit higher. But we focused on that partly because we know that by the time children are between 8 and 10 years old, if they haven't mastered reading, it's going to be a much more difficult process in order to attain a functional literacy rate. We're focusing as an entity on challenges, looking at a series of competitions in which we can actually generate new ideas, help implement them and seed fund them, and really excited by tapping into the network of the Big Ideas competition. Today we're going to hear a little bit more about some of our focus areas. We really recognize that children learn best in the language they understand, just like we have learned, most likely in our mother tongue language. We also recognize that without some family or community engagement to help us practice reading, we probably did not attain our level of reading without that engagement. And finally, so often children with disabilities are often excluded from the process, and how do we begin to look at new ways in which we can include them in that learning process and ensure that they have equal opportunities as those without. So with that, as Philip said, we had run the competition last year. We had some winners, and I think at this time Philip's going to kind of highlight who those winners are, and then we'll go back a little bit more.
Yeah, last year was a really spirited competition across all the Big Ideas categories, but in particular, the Mobiles for Reading came out with some fantastic winners at the end, and they came from sort of all over the place. We had the first place team, actually, which was a team of undergraduates, all sort of first and second year undergraduates, still undeclared, from the College of William and Mary, and that's one of the 18 campuses that's eligible to compete in the Big Ideas competition last year and this year. But these students from the College of William and Mary had a project called Creating Decodable Readers in Haitian Creole, where they employed local teachers to create and teach reading materials that integrated Haiti's mother tongue language and native culture. And this was a software application that enabled writers to create books for beginning readers using a systematic phonics approach. So these students actually traveled all the way to Berkeley from Virginia to compete in our grand prize pitch day. So they won first place in their category, and then they were one of the 6 teams that were invited to our grand prize pitch day, and they took home the second place prize. So we were really happy and proud for what they had done last year. The second place team in the category was called My Reading Tablet, and this team hailed from Monash University in Melbourne, Australia. So as you can see, we're sort of spanning the globe with these big ideas. And this project created a portable reading device called My Reading Tablet, which equipped breakthrough word switch technology and allowed learners to successfully navigate complex texts despite limited reading proficiencies. And then we had 2 UC Berkeley teams that took home third place and an honorable mention. The first one was Padney, and this project helped to increase literacy rates through a peer-based mobile platform. It took an existing interactive voice response model for community communication and allowed older students to record short readings and micro lessons. And then the honorable mention team, Guyane, is an ecosystem for collaborative inquiry-based reading levels that merge task-based and storytelling approaches to increase reading comprehension to early-stage readers. So as you can see, these students hailed from sort of all over. They were both graduate and undergraduate. I should have pointed that out. They came from majors such as industrial design, IT, English, development practice, information. So Big Ideas, as you can see from this category alone, is a very multidisciplinary category, very multidisciplinary competition. Undergraduate and graduate students, and it's really just about helping these students get their ideas out and beginning to work on them and developing actionable plans for the very first time, early stage projects. So with that, I'm going to turn it back to Rebecca to talk about gaming technology and literacy.
Thanks very much, Philip. As I mentioned, we've learned to read through a variety of mechanisms, right? We've learned to read in languages we understand. We've learned to read through support and community engagement. I think one thing that we wanted to point out is gaming is really fun. I mean, how we enjoy learning when it's more fun, and gaming, gamification is a really interesting industry right now, and how it links to literacy. There's been a lot done in English, as we probably have actually come into knowledge of, or even with siblings, we might have done a few games on our phones with them, and it's quite exciting. But we also know very little exists in non-English speaking countries. We're starting to see the market grow in that setting, but there's still a lot more that can be done. We really wanted to highlight games also because they're useful. As I said, they're fun, but they also can provide some assessment behind the actual mechanism of the game and the software, and I think that is also critical. We really like to see that you can start to monitor and demonstrate a children's progress even through a fun activity. And then finally, games for children with disabilities have a huge potential, enabling them with their various different approaches to begin to look at how they can learn to read in more engaging ways. And we're going to demonstrate some of those today. So we want to throw that out so that if you're interested, that you can start to think of possibilities on improving reading through a game mind frame. Moving on, I just wanted to highlight a few of our round one. We've in our second stage of competition, but our round one innovators were also spanned from all over the world. Philip, I don't know if we're on that next slide. I might just not have my screen up right, but we had groups from like WizKids Workshop in Ethiopia, where they were kind of a similar Sesame Street option to kind of play on words, where they were providing fun interactive television programs as well as mobile-based applications for kids to practice their reading. We had India, where we had Sesame Street Workshop. Gali Gali Sim Sim is the culturally appropriate terminology for Sesame Street, and they had utilized and translated and contextualized what we know today into Hindi. We had in Cambodia, we had World Education, who developed the first ever Khmer reading application, which was a simplified game, but also began to teach children their phonetics. And today you're going to actually hear from Agora Center. Emma on the Google chat is going to explain a little bit more how their grapho game works and what they'll be testing about in Zambia. As part of the games, we also wanted to highlight our innovators that are focused on disability, because there really aren't enough groups trying to address this challenge, and we're really excited to be able to seed fund and come alongside some groups who are really, really talented and looking at new opportunities to impact the lives of many children. You're going to hear from Dr. Corinne Venipol, who's been working with some counterparts in Morocco to develop a sign language both games and instructional materials. We have Benetech, kind of based out in the San Francisco area, looking at how do you provide accessible books for children with blind or low vision. In the Philippines, we have Resources for the Blind, also working on blind and low vision using different Braille technology, and Catholic Relief Services in Lesotho. I think with that, I'd really like to turn it over to Emma to provide us an overview of what they are going to be doing in Zambia with GraphoGame and the inspiration behind it.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. So my name is Emma Ojanen, and I'm from Finland, the University of Jyväskylä, speaking on behalf of Dr. Jacqueline Sherefolotia and our team in Lusaka, Zambia. So I'm really happy to present today, as you are all interested in creating new solutions for education, exploring how technology can promote literacy learning and teaching around the world. So just for starters, maybe we can take a look at the video on the website. Philip, can you?
I will cue that up now for you.
Thank you so much.
Hello, my name is Gabriel. I live in Zambia and I'm 7 years old. Did you know that in Zambia we have too many illiterate children? A few years ago, we met Professor Heikki from Finland, where they invented GraphoGame. GraphoGame is a learning game on computers and mobile phones, in which speech sounds are systematically connected to writing. This is what it looks like on computer, and here on mobile. Graphogame helps Finnish children learn the basics of reading skills in a few hours. It's like magic. And guess what? The writing in Finnish is fairly similar to our Bantu languages. It means that Graphogame can help us to read as well. In fact, Graphogame can help all the children in the world learn to read. Even my little brother.
Thank you so much.
There you
So,
go. Go
okay.
ahead, Emma.
Thank you. So Graphogame was originally developed as a learning support for children with dyslexia by the UNESCO professor Heikki Lyytinen in Finland. So it is designed to support or to provide individualized support in basic reading skills so that each player of the game gets precisely the kind of practice they need. So just a few hours of practice time with the game in correctly conducted intervention programs improves basic reading skills such as letter sound knowledge and other basic reading skills. So the thing is that children with dyslexia need more practice in this, and due to the large amount of repetitions they need for early reading skills, it is a very good idea to provide the training in a game-like environment like Graphogame, because it's easy to motivate them to practice with that. And as Graphogame collects data from the learner's experience in the game can be used as a tool for research in learning language and literacy. And the new knowledge that the game provides on the learning process, such as knowing which letters are the most difficult to learn in a specific language, can then help to create better learning materials and better teacher training in general. So Graphogame is widely used in Finland with the original name Ekapeli, and the language adaptations for the game are studied in over 20 languages around the world at the moment. In Zambia, the work with this literacy game started already 10 years ago. Professor Heikki Lyytinen has this very strong motto, and it is about providing the best scientific knowledge in literacy to people who need it most. So therefore we started the work in Africa right away when the very first versions of the game had been developed in Finland. And the idea was that if these work in Finland, they need to be made available in Africa as well. So in our first study in Zambia, we only had 12 second-hand laptops that we used for the study. And the pilot showed that while it is indeed possible to improve children's reading skills with a few hours of playing, it is also very, very important that teachers and other adults become aware of correct literacy instruction methods. So therefore, providing professional training to education specialists is very essential for reaching sustainable outcomes. So using an e-learning game does not necessarily make everything better in the school if the instruction methods in general need development as well. So in Zambia, the work was continued with a team of PhD students who then conducted a large research on the use of Graphogame with mobile phones. And my colleague, Dr. Jacqueline Cerefolotia, found out that it is actually important to let the teachers also use the game, and not only the children. And we believe that this is related to the recent change in the curriculum in Zambia, which now emphasizes the use of local languages in literacy instruction instead of the English which was used before. So currently the teachers who are working at the moment, many of them went to school themselves when the English was the language of instruction, and therefore they can benefit from Graphogame, especially in training of correct letter sound connections in the local languages. So even if we have a nice e-learning tool, the use of ICT or e-learning is of very little consequence if it cannot reach the people with the most urgent need. And we believe that these people live in the countryside. So the big challenge is how can we use mobile phones and internet in the remote rural areas in Africa. And last year, in 2014, we tried that and distributed mobile phones to 24 teachers in rural Zambia, who then provided grapher game to children either at home or school. And those who played at home also taught their adult family members to use the game. Over 50 families used the game together, and all the game users, teachers, adults, and children showed progress in their game log records. So learning to read on a mobile phone connected the community and increased people's interest in children's education as well. And what was most encouraging here was that the current internet connections actually allow online monitoring of the intervention, even in the rural areas. And this, of course, provides a lot of possibilities for distance education in many countries. And this is where we are going to continue with the All Children Reading project in Zambia, educating teachers about good pedagogical practices in literacy instruction is essential for good literacy outcomes. And mobile phones can be the platform for providing this. So providing in-service training for teachers for teaching basic literacy skills and disseminating reading materials. So together with our partner, the Center for Promotion of Literacy in Sub-Saharan Africa, we are aiming to support the teachers in Zambia in implementing the new literacy framework in local language and support the children who are struggling to learn to read. We continue to work in the rural areas because that is where the mobile phone can make the biggest impact in education. So just from my own point of view, now if you are planning to take part in this wonderful innovation competition, just think big and think beyond, because we started very small 10 years ago and we had no idea that this would grow this big. So now there are a lot of opportunities that you can use. There are people who are living in nomadic cultures who currently are left outside education systems. There are people in the refugee camps, so the possibilities are endless. So just think big and plan for the future. And thank you for listening, and now back to Philip.
Okay, thanks, Emma. What I love about your project is how well-rounded and how well thought out it is, and this is something we often talk to Big Ideas teams about. Obviously, it's a great technology that you've invented, but you put an entire program around that technology. You've done in-service teacher trainings to teach them how to use this technology, and you've worked with local communities on this, and that's a really important part of putting an innovation together. So great work, and thank you very much for that presentation. And with that, I'm going to turn it now over to Corinne Vinipol, who again is the president of the Institute for Disabilities Research and Training, and she's going to talk about how she's using technologies for assisting individuals with visual disabilities. So with that, Corinne, can you take it away?
Okay, thank you very much. Phil, if you can move, I think there's more on that particular slide. If you click one more time. Yeah, thanks. That's great. I was asked to talk about people with sensory impairments in particular. My expertise is mainly working with people who are deaf and deaf-blind, and I've worked in schools for both deaf children and blind children. And early on, it became very apparent that there were some deep challenges to literacy for both of these groups. For children who are blind and who have low vision, the biggest problem is access to text. And, back in, as my kids say, the days when dinosaurs roamed the earth, we would read text to blind children. The problem with that is you would have human intervention, and it wasn't really literacy because the child wasn't reading him or herself. So as technology proliferated, we started looking for technological ways that we could make text accessible to blind children. And essentially we found two things. One was audio, and there's screen readers that will convert text to audio. And that's sort of like when we had the humans text readers. And the other is technology that converts text to Braille. Now, for those of you who are programmers and also engineers, there's some great opportunities here for coming up with some new innovations. The one challenge with changing to audio is with the screen readers, when you build your screens, you have to make sure that they're going to be read in a logical fashion. For blind kids also, there's difficulty with access to graphics. And as we've moved into media, graphics have become more and more important, graphics and video. So there are a lot of interesting technological innovations recently with changing graphics to tactile modalities that blind children can read. Also in tagging your graphics so they can be explained. Now for children who are deaf and hard of hearing, we have something a little bit different. In the past, most people who are profoundly deaf rely on some kind of sign language. The interesting thing about sign language, unlike what most people think, is it is not a gestural version of a spoken language. Native sign languages are actually totally different languages, and there's not a word-for-word translation. Another thing that's interesting is that sign languages are not written. So if you're going to convert sign language speech or text into sign language, it has to be in animation or graphics or video. Now, most of the technology that was developed for many years was based on captioning, which was more simple because you were just taking audio and converting it to text. But remember, text is not sign language. So text is based on the spoken language, and therefore it's inaccessible to many deaf people for linguistic reasons. So the technology that incorporates sign language really has lagged far behind. Bill, can you change the slide?
Is that the one you want?
Yep, that's it.
Okay.
So these are, this is what we do know. For deaf people, research has shown that if we combine a sign language, whoops, one before, the sign language, yeah, that's it, the sign language and the spoken language, that there's a positive impact on literacy and comprehension. So in building technology, if we can get sign language into it for people who are sign language dependent, that's going to help their ability to navigate the spoken language. Many deaf children may not be able to understand text, but if it's explained in sign language, they understand it just fine. For blind children, what we know is that most print materials are not converted into Braille. And this is a huge accessibility issues. And without some technological intervention, they can have no access. So some things that we need to think about where we can go, and some ideas that might challenge you all to come up with some technological solutions is, how do we build technology for these populations that is low cost? Because typically the cost of building and the associated hardware and software is very expensive. And how do we guarantee availability and accessibility of these softwares? Also, many people have thought about technologies that may be accessible, but they haven't incorporated gaming. And that's a great way, as Phil was talking and Rebecca was talking, to engage the learner. So how would we build games for blind children that would incorporate Braille, and how would we, and ways to sense the graphics that are on the screen, and for deaf children so they would be linguistically available. Okay, next slide. So, as Phil said when he introduced me, I'm CEO of a small company in Maryland that has focused on building technology that's accessible primarily to deaf people. And we did this because for many years I was a teacher and a school principal at programs for the deaf, and I kept encountering the impediments that these children would have to accessibility. And I was very fortunate to hang around with a lot of male friends who happened to be going to Johns Hopkins University, and they were all engineers. So they introduced me early on to programming, and I began to realize the potential of technology to improve literacy for deaf children. So I'm going to go now, Phil, over to a screen share.
Okay, let me get you out of this.
Okay.
I will send you over. I will give you the controls now. Okay, you're in control now.
Okay, there we go. So now we see you twice. Okay. So what I'm going to do is take you over here to our website. And we've been in business for close to 30 years. And over that time, we developed close to 30 software tools. And what became apparent after a while was that we needed to migrate online because we had people with mobile technologies, people with both who were using Windows as well as Apple technologies, and we constantly had requests from people to increase our translation lexicon. So we started building this website, which it can be found on the toolbar in our website, and it's called My ASL Tech. And I wanted to show you just a glimpse of a couple of the technologies. This one is a real-time translator. So you can say, and you see very quickly what happens is we have sign-supported reading. Now, some things in sign language, for example, the word it is not used in American Sign Language, so we might decide to hide it. Now, is has different signs, but we may decide to hide that as well because that often isn't used, and maybe the punctuation. We also, if we want, we could fingerspell for like a reading activity if we thought the child already knew the sign, and then we can always play the video. So it takes a couple seconds to concatenate the video clips that are being held on our Amazon server. So, it's nice to see you all. Now I'll show you briefly a couple of the games that we have. You can see how they incorporate sign language. So this one, Sino, is a sign language bingo game. And you can play it by the all category or by any of the other categories. So maybe because it's a holiday, we're going to pretty soon with Halloween, we'll click on that. So now I've got to figure out which of these words matches the sign language. So if I'm correct, I get a happy face. And if I'm incorrect, I get a wrong, try again. And if I'm wrong a second time, it tells me the correct word and gives me a sad face. So that's Sino game. Here's another game that we have, Concentration. And this one you can play with game boards that are 3x3 for young children or 5x5 for the older kids. So maybe if we do a 3x3 just to get an idea, let's do colors. And here what I try to do is make a match between an English word and a sign. So here I have a match. So you have to get the whole game board filled. We also have a whole science series. For example, here, the child can log in and then here we have so this one has different areas that you can go into and see information, read, get questions answered, play games, watch cloud rescues, etc. So there are about 14 games in this section. So let me go out of screen share. Bill?
Yep.
Okay. So let me see if Rebecca would like to continue working.
Sure. Thank you so much, Corinne and Emma.
You're welcome. Here we go. Here you are.
It's exciting to see these different types of games and technologies being used, and also to recognize that so many children are having the opportunity to utilize them, right? That had not been given that opportunity before. And I think the more that we can replicate and scale these type of innovations, obviously we'll make greater progress. I think it just, Phil, the next slide is a picture of what we kind of look at as the world. You know, we all fit into the world in some piece. We all have our respective roles, whether we are students right now, or we're working, or we're within a family or a corporation, that we can be contributing in some way to ensuring that children can actually learn to read and have the materials, have the fun, have the family support that's needed to ensure that they are developing that. We developed this in order to kind of just depict what All Children Reading is trying to do, and recognizing that there is definitely a place for everyone. And the Big Ideas competition, I think, is just the model in trying to spur students, both graduate and undergraduate, to new heights, to think outside of the box, to bring new and fresh technologies and insights into industries that have been running for a long time and need new breath. And so we're really hoping that through this year's competition, we'll continue to see some of the really exciting innovations we saw last year. And that just to put out there that we're open to supporting through the process. As Philip said, there's many ways to engage. We do have mentors that you can connect with to kind of sound out your ideas. And we hope that it can be a collaborative process as you start to brainstorm and think through how you might contribute in this competition.
Along those lines, Rebecca, we did get 2 questions while we've been doing this webinar, which I can probably respond to. The first one was, can we submit an idea to 2 categories? Is this discouraged or encouraged? And for the Big Ideas contest, you have to pick the category to which you want to apply to. So if you have one idea, you have to choose a category. And I can imagine that a student who is looking at the Mobiles for Reading category might also see the IT for Society category and wonder which category they should submit to. The first bit of advice I would have to give to that student would be, why don't you email us at bigideas@berkeley.edu, and we can set up a remote advising appointment if you're not from the Berkeley campus, or we can meet with you in person if you're from the Berkeley campus, and we can talk through your project, talk through sort of the core of the innovation and what you're really going for. More generally, what I would say is, if the core of the innovation, if it's a new technology, and that is really what the innovative aspect of your project is, maybe IT for Society is a great category. But if the core of your project really focuses on increasing literacy rates and finding a novel way to do that, then Mobiles for Reading would be the category for you. The second question is, we said that mentorship is available. Does this only occur after the pre-proposal? And one of the things we really pride ourselves on here at the Big Ideas contest is that we provide resources throughout the entire competition. The official mentorship period is only for finalists, and that spans from January to March. But during the current pre-proposal period, which extends from now through November 12th, we have advising hours with our Big Ideas advisors and with myself. And if in the course of the conversation we find that you need additional help in certain areas, we can put you in touch with the judges and mentors that we've used in the past who might be open to hearing your project and talking through problems and challenges you're facing. So again, the best advice I can give you is to come talk to us, either email us at bigideas@berkeley.edu, or drop in during our drop-in advising hours if you're here on the Berkeley campus, because we pride ourselves in helping students throughout this entire process. We're sort of a very high-touch competition. We want to work with you to help you develop those really cool, creative ideas that you have. Rebecca, do you have any final words?
No, just be encouraged. Just recognize that we're all here because someone taught us to read, and we hope that you'll be able to contribute back, even at this stage in your career, to this cause.
Great. Well, I just want to thank everybody once again for attending our second Mobiles for Reading webinar. Thank you to all the presenters. It's been great to doing this with you and working with you on this project. But I really, again, want to encourage all the students who are out there with any creative idea you have in your head that fits into one of these categories, especially the Mobiles for Reading Challenge. Apply by November 12th. We have many students who tell us at the end of the year, I almost didn't apply, but I put in that pre-proposal, and now they're off and running with their projects, and they're becoming real entrepreneurial startup gurus. So take on the challenge, believe in your big idea, and we hope to see your applications on November 12th. So thank you once again, everyone. Thank you, presenters, and I look forward to hearing your big ideas on November 12th. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thanks.